There are moments in storytelling that tear at the heart, not because of what is said, but because of what is left unsaid. Outlander has given us many such moments, but one that stands among the most powerful is when Claire says goodbye to Frank. Not with grand speeches, but with a silent choice that changes both of their lives forever. It is a farewell marked by love, regret, and the heavy shadow of destiny. Section 1. Claire's farewell to Frank. Imagine standing at a crossroads where every path ahead leads to heartbreak. For Claire, this moment comes when she realizes she must leave Frank, the man she once promised her life to, in order to return to Jamie. It is not a decision made lightly. It is not one driven by anger or bitterness. Instead, it is a choice made in the quiet recognition that her heart, her soul, and her future belong somewhere else. Or rather, with someone else. The power of this scene lies in its stillness. There are no loud arguments, no accusations, no dramatic shouts echoing down the halls. Instead, the pain is carried in the silence between two people who once shared a bond. Frank represents stability, familiarity, and the world Claire once knew. He is the man who gave her companionship, who welcomed her back after she disappeared without explanation, and who tried to rebuild a life with her, even when she seemed half present, half absent. Yet despite all of this, she cannot give him her full heart, because it no longer belongs to him. The farewell is more than just the end of a marriage. It is the closing of a chapter that never had the chance to truly heal. Claire looks at Frank, and we see in her eyes the ache of guilt, the guilt of leaving someone who does not deserve abandonment. And yet we also see the quiet strength of a woman who knows she cannot live a lie. She cannot give Frank what he deserves, no matter how much she wishes she could. This duality is what makes the moment so devastating, the clash between love and truth. What lingers most is the humanity of it all. The scene does not paint Frank as a villain nor Claire as selfish. Instead, it shows two human beings caught in a tragedy of circumstance. Frank loved Claire deeply, but her love was torn away by forces no one could control: fate, time, and the unshakable pull of another soul. Their farewell is not just about leaving someone behind. It is about facing the cruel reality that sometimes love is not enough to hold two people together. And in that realization, Claire's goodbye becomes one of the most emotional scenes in Outlander. If Claire's farewell is an act of painful courage, then Frank's response is a lesson in silent grief. He does not explode with rage or cling desperately to keep her by his side. Instead, he carries himself with the dignity of a man who knows that love cannot be forced, no matter how much it is wanted. That quiet dignity makes the scene all the more heartbreaking, because we see the cost of his restraint written across his face and his posture, in the way he lets go without truly wanting to. Frank represents more than just a husband. He is a mirror of what could have been. He is the life Claire might have lived if fate had not intervened, if she had never touched the stones at Craigna, if she had remained in the world of stability and order. In that moment of farewell, we understand that Frank is not losing just a wife. He is losing the future he dreamed of, the family he longed to protect, the quiet love story he thought would carry them into old age. Every glance, every breath is soaked in the sorrow of unspoken words. What makes this goodbye unforgettable is that Frank's pain is not loud, but it is vast. His silence is heavy, the kind that lingers long after the scene ends. He does not beg Claire to stay because deep down he knows her heart already belongs to another. And so his grief becomes an act of love, letting her go even as it shatters him inside. In that choice, we see Frank's humanity in its purest form, his ability to accept the unbearable truth. For the audience, this moment is a reminder that heartbreak is not always about betrayal or cruelty. Sometimes it is about the simple, devastating fact that love cannot survive when it no longer has a home. Frank's farewell is the embodiment of that truth. It reminds us that the most painful goodbyes are not the ones shouted in anger, but the ones whispered in silence. And so, as Claire turns away, walking toward her destiny with Jamie, Frank remains, not as a villain, not as a forgotten figure, but as a man whose love was deep, whose grief was quiet, and whose goodbye became one of the most hauntingly emotional scenes in Outlander. Goodbyes are rarely final. They live on in the choices we make, in the memories we carry, in the people who come after us. Claire's farewell to Frank is not just the closing of a chapter, it is the spark that sets countless other stories in motion. By letting go of one life, she steps fully into another, and the consequences of that moment echo across generations. For Claire, The decision to leave Frank was more than choosing Jamie. It was choosing honesty over comfort, passion over predictability, and destiny over duty. That choice carved her path forward, but it also left scars she would carry forever. Every time she thought of Frank, there would always be that sting of regret, not because she wished to return, but because she knew she had broken a man who once gave her everything. Her farewell was an act of love for Jamie, but it was also a wound she would never quite heal from. For Jamie, this moment became proof of something greater than time itself. Claire's decision to return to him confirmed that their bond was not an illusion, not a fleeting fantasy of another century. It was real, it was eternal, and it was worth everything she sacrificed. But that victory came with weight, because Jamie understood what it meant to be chosen at such a cost. Love for them would always carry shadows. Shadows of a man left behind, shadows of a life abandoned. And then there is Brianna. Though she was too young to fully grasp the truth at first, her entire life would be shaped by the ripple of this farewell. She grew up under the shadow of Frank's grief, yet she carried Jamie's fire in her veins. She inherited two fathers, one by blood and one by devotion, and that duality defined her journey. The farewell between Claire and Frank did not just break two hearts. It created a legacy of love and conflict that Brianna would spend years untangling. This is why the scene resonates so deeply. It reminds us that choices in love are never contained to a single moment. They spill outward, touching lives we cannot predict. Claire's farewell to Frank was a personal act, but its consequences shaped her marriage to Jamie, her bond with Brianna, and the story of Outlander itself. In that sense, it is not just one of the most emotional scenes, it is one of the most pivotal. Some scenes in a story are more than just turning points. They become symbols. Claire's farewell to Frank is not simply about a marriage ending. It is about what Outlander has always been at its core: the collision of love and time. The sacrifices we make when the heart refuses to be silent. This farewell teaches us that love is rarely simple. It does not follow rules, it does not obey reason, and it does not always fit neatly into the lives we plan. Claire did not stop loving Frank because he failed her. She let him go because destiny had already chosen another path for her heart. That truth is painful, but it is also deeply human, because sometimes the greatest act of love is honesty, even when honesty leaves scars. And what makes the scene unforgettable is that it holds no villains. Frank is not cruel, Claire is not unfaithful, and Jamie is not a thief of love. They are all victims of time, swept into a story larger than themselves. Their lives remind us that heartbreak does not always come from betrayal. Sometimes it comes from loving the right person at the wrong moment, or in the wrong century. For the audience, this farewell is more than a scene to watch. It is a mirror. We see in it the ache of letting go, the courage of following the heart, and the cost of choices that cannot be undone. It reminds us that every love story, no matter how beautiful, carries both light and shadow. To love deeply is to risk loss, and to say goodbye is to carry that loss forward forever. In the end, Claire's farewell to Frank is not only one of Outlander's most emotional scenes, it is one of its most defining. It captures the soul of the series, a story where time bends, where love survives across centuries, and where sacrifice is both the curse and the gift of passion. This moment tells us that goodbyes are never the end. They are the beginning of something new, even if it is written in tears. A farewell like Claire and Frank's does not end when the scene fades to black. It echoes. It lingers in the pauses of later episodes, in the haunted looks, in the silences that say more than dialogue ever could. Their goodbye becomes a ghost that travels with Claire, a memory she cannot erase, and a shadow that even Jamie learns to respect. Love like Frank's does not vanish overnight, and heartbreak like Claire's does not heal with time alone. Instead, it becomes part of the story, woven into every choice, every triumph, every tragedy that follows. What makes this scene so unforgettable is its honesty. Many love stories end with clear villains or easy answers, but Outlander refuses to give us that. It shows us that good people can still break each other's hearts. It shows us that sometimes two truths can exist side by side. Claire loved Frank, but she also loved Jamie more. Frank deserved loyalty, but Jamie deserved destiny. There is no way to reconcile these truths without pain, and that is what makes the scene so raw. For viewers, this echoes into our own lives. We may not travel through stones or live across centuries, but we know what it feels like to make impossible choices. We know what it is to carry guilt, to wonder about the life we left behind, or to grieve someone who is still very much alive. Claire's farewell captures that universal ache, the ache of what if, the ache of knowing we cannot live in two worlds at once. Yet within that ache lies a strange kind of beauty. Because in letting go of Frank, Claire teaches us something powerful, that love is not about holding tighter, but about being true, even when truth hurts. Her decision honors Jamie, but in its own way it also honors Frank, because she refuses to give him only half of herself. She gives him the dignity of truth, rather than the cruelty of pretense. And so, the echo of this goodbye becomes larger than the characters themselves. It becomes a meditation on love's complexity, on fate's cruelty, and on the courage it takes to walk away when staying would be easier. Long after the scene ends, its impact remains, reminding us that the most emotional moments in Outlander are not just about romance, but about what it means to be human. The reason Claire and Frank's farewell still moves us is not only because of what happens on screen, but because of what it awakens in us. Every viewer sees something of themselves in that moment, a memory of a goodbye they did not want to say, a choice that divided their heart, or a silence that spoke louder than any words. That is the power of this scene. It reaches through time, through fiction, and into our own lives. When we watch Claire walk away, we are reminded of the weight of choices. We remember that life often asks us to trade one love for another, one dream for another, one future for another. And while most of us may never face a choice as dramatic as Claire's, the feeling is the same. We know what it is to stand at a crossroads and feel that either path will cost us something we cannot get back. This scene resonates because it strips away fantasy and shows us raw humanity. It doesn't let us escape into a world where everything ends neatly and everyone finds happiness without loss. Instead, it holds up a mirror to reality, that love is messy, that life is unfair, and that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to be honest about where our heart belongs. And yet, in that honesty, there is beauty. What stays with us long after the scene is not just the sadness, but the truth it reveals about love itself. That love is not always about forever. That love can change, can shift, can belong fully to one person and then, through the strange hand of fate, belong fully to another. It challenges the way we think about devotion, about marriage, about promises, and not to diminish them, but to remind us that even in their breaking, there can still be dignity and meaning. And so we cry, not only for Frank and Claire, but for ourselves, for the people we've lost, for the choices that broke us, for the goodbyes that still echo in our own lives. That is why this farewell is one of Outlander's most emotional moments, because it is not just their story, it is ours too. Every story leaves behind echoes, but some echoes grow louder with time. Claire's farewell to Frank is not only a moment of heartbreak, it is a moment that defines Outlander's entire journey. It is the reminder that love is not simple, that loyalty is not always enough, and that destiny sometimes demands a price we never thought we'd pay. What makes this farewell so unforgettable is its permanence. There is no undoing it, no turning back, no perfect resolution that ties every thread neatly together. Frank continues to live with the ghost of Claire's absence. Claire carries the guilt of the life she left behind. Jamie inherits the weight of being chosen at the cost of another man's broken heart. And Brianna grows up in the shadow of both love and loss. One goodbye touches all of them, shaping who they are and who they will become. But within that pain lies the soul of Outlander. This is not just a tale of romance. It is a story about what it means to be human, to love deeply, to sacrifice, to let go, and to keep moving forward even when pieces of your heart are left behind. The show dares to say what many stories will not, that goodbyes are as much a part of love as hellos, and that sometimes the most powerful proof of love is not in holding on but in the strength it takes to release. For us, the viewers, the legacy of this scene is clear. It reminds us that love is both fragile and unbreakable, fleeting and eternal, cruel and kind. It is the very reason we return to Outlander again and again, not just for the sweeping romance or the time-traveling adventure, but for the raw human truths hidden in moments like this. So when we look back at Claire's farewell to Frank, we are not just remembering one of the most emotional scenes of the series. We are remembering why we watch it all, because stories like this remind us of our own humanity, our own heartbreaks, our own hopes. And as the screen fades, we are left with the echo of that goodbye. Bittersweet, unforgettable, and eternal.